The black card hit the marble floor with a sharp crack, and 4 women scrambled for it like wolves fighting over meat. But Zara didn't move. She stood frozen in the corner, her maid's uniform pressed and perfect, her hands still clutching the silver tray she'd been carrying. The man in the tailored black suit watched her from across the room, his dark eyes cutting through the chaos like a blade through silk. You.
Why
His
aren't you
voice
fighting
silenced
for it?
everything. Why aren't you fighting for it? Zara's heart slammed against her ribs. She wasn't supposed to be here. She was supposed to be invisible. She was supposed to clean the champagne glasses and disappear before anyone noticed the help. But Kang Jae-won, the man the whispers called the Korean butcher, was staring directly at her. I asked you a question. One of the women on the floor, a blonde in a red designer dress, laughed nervously. She's just the maid.
She's just the maid.
She probably doesn't even know what a black card is. Zara's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice steady.
I
know exactly what it is. I also know it's not mine to take. Something shifted in Jae-won's expression. Something dangerous. Something curious. Everyone out.
Everyone leave!
The 4 women exchanged confused looks. The blonde stood up slowly, brushing off her knees.
Jae-won, baby, you can't be serious.
Jae-won, baby, you can't be serious.
Did I stutter?
Did I stutter? The room emptied in seconds. The heavy oak doors slammed shut, and suddenly Zara was alone with a man who reportedly made people disappear for looking at him wrong. If you're hooked already, make sure you subscribe and drop a like on this video. Comment where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing how far this story travels. Now, let's get back to Zara, because things are about to get intense. Jae-won walked toward her slowly. Each step echoed through the massive living room of his Manhattan penthouse. Zara forced herself not to back away. She'd survived worse than rich men with power complexes. She'd survived foster homes and eviction notices and working 3 jobs while putting herself through night school. She would survive this too. What's your name? Zara. Zara Williams. Who hired you? The staffing agency. Elite Domestic Services. I've been here for 2 weeks. He stopped 3 feet away from her. Close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that probably cost more than her monthly rent. 2 weeks, he repeated. And in 2 weeks, you've never looked at me. Not once. Everyone looks at me. They stare. They whisper. They're afraid or they're hungry. But you, he tilted his head slightly. You pretend I don't exist. You're my employer. I'm here to work, not to stare. Those women on the floor, they're daughters of politicians, CEOs, old money. Every single one of them would sell their grandmother for a chance to be Mrs. Kang. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. And they dove for that card like trained dogs. Zara said nothing. But you, a maid making minimum wage, probably living paycheck to paycheck, you didn't even blink. Like I said. It's not mine. That's not why. Excuse me. He reached down and picked up the black card, turning it over in his fingers. I've been running tests like this for 3 years. Every woman I've brought into my circle, every potential partner my family has thrown at me. They all fail. Every single one. He looked at her again. Do you know what the test actually measures? Zara shook her head slowly. Dignity. Self-respect. The ability to hold on to who you are when power and money are waved in your face. He slipped the card back into his jacket pocket. Those women failed because they forgot themselves. They forgot they were supposed to be worthy of standing next to me, not crawling at my feet. I'm not trying to stand next to you. I'm trying to finish my shift so I can go home and study for my nursing exam. For the first time, something like genuine surprise flickered across his face. You're in nursing school. Was. Before I had to drop out to work full-time. I'm studying for my re-entry exam. Jae-won was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to the massive window overlooking the Manhattan skyline, his hands clasped behind his back. My mother died when I was 12. Stomach cancer. The nurses who cared for her, they were angels. They treated her with more kindness than anyone in my family ever did. His voice was different now. Softer. Almost human. I remember thinking that anyone who chooses that path must have something good in them. Something uncorrupted. Zara didn't know what to say. This wasn't the ruthless mafia boss the tabloids wrote about. This was a man with wounds he'd never let heal. You can go, he said without turning around. Zara hesitated. Sir. Jae-won. If you're going to stand in my living room and lecture me about dignity, you can use my name. Jae-won. I don't know what you're looking for, but I'm not it. I'm just a woman trying to survive. He turned then, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Someone who isn't pretending. Before she could respond, the doors burst open. A tall Korean woman in a white pantsuit strode in, her heels clicking like gunshots on the floor. Jae-won. I just saw those girls leaving in tears. What did you? She stopped when she saw Zara. Her eyes traveled from Zara's uniform to her face to her natural hair pulled back in a neat bun. Who is this? This is Zara. She works here. The help? You cleared the room for the help. Zara felt the familiar sting of dismissal. She'd felt it 1,000 times before. But Jae-won's response made her freeze. Watch how you speak in my home, Soo-jin. The woman, Soo-jin, laughed incredulously. Are you serious right now? Your grandmother is waiting downstairs. We have the partnership dinner in 3 hours. And you're up here playing games with, she gestured at Zara like she was something unpleasant on the bottom of her shoe. With what? Jae-won's voice had gone cold again. Finish your sentence. Soo-jin's smile faltered. I'm just saying, you need to focus on what matters. On your future. On the family. And I'm saying that if you disrespect anyone in my household again, including my staff, you and I will have a very different conversation. Now leave. Soo-jin's face flushed red. She shot Zara a look of pure venom before spinning on her heel and storming out. The silence that followed was heavy. I'm sorry about that, Jae-won said quietly. She's my father's choice. One of many candidates for an arrangement I have no intention of accepting. It's fine. I'm used to it. You shouldn't have to be. Those words hit harder than Zara expected. She blinked rapidly, refusing to let any emotion show. I should get back to work. Take the rest of the day off. Paid. I don't need charity. It's not charity. Consider it compensation for having to witness that. He paused. Zara. Can you come back tomorrow? Not as staff. As a guest. Why? Because I'm hosting another dinner. And I'd like you there. To do what? Serve food and get insulted? No. To sit at my table. To show everyone in that room what real strength looks like. Zara stared at him. You're insane. Probably. Will you come? What do you think Zara should do? Would you trust this man? Comment your thoughts, I want to hear what you'd do in her position. Now let's see what Zara decides. She went home that night to her tiny studio apartment in Queens and tried to convince herself that she was going to say no. She had bills to pay. Exams to study for. Dreams that didn't involve getting tangled up with a man whose business dealings were rumored to involve things that could get people killed. But when she closed her eyes, she saw the way he'd looked at her. Like she was real. Like she mattered. Like for the first time in her life, someone saw past the uniform and the struggle and the exhaustion. The next evening, a package arrived at her door. Inside was a black silk dress that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe and a note written in sharp, elegant handwriting. You owe me nothing. But I hope you'll come. Jay. Zara held the dress for a long time. Then she put it on. The penthouse was transformed when she arrived. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across dozens of guests in designer clothes. The air smelled like expensive perfume and whispered secrets. Zara felt every eye in the room turn toward her as she walked in. She knew what they saw, a black woman in a sea of pale faces, an outsider wearing borrowed silk. But she lifted her chin and kept walking. Jae-won met her halfway across the room. He was wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit, and when he saw her, something softened in his expression. You came. I almost didn't. But you did. That's what matters. He offered his arm. Ready to give them something to talk about. They're already talking. Then let's give them something worth saying. He led her to the main table, past the shocked faces and whispered comments. Past Soo-jin, whose expression could have curdled milk. Past 4 other women, the same ones who had scrambled for the credit card yesterday, who stared at Zara like she'd committed a crime just by existing. The dinner was excruciating. Every course brought new passive-aggressive comments and backhanded compliments. Such an interesting choice of guest, Jae-won. I didn't know the dress code had changed. Tell me, dear, what exactly do you do? Zara answered each question with grace, refusing to shrink or snap back. She talked about nursing school. About her dreams of working in pediatric oncology. About growing up in the system and learning that survival wasn't enough, she wanted to thrive. With each answer, she watched Jae-won's expression change. Watched him look at her like she was speaking a language only he could understand. But the real explosion came during dessert. An older woman at the head of the table, Jae-won's grandmother, Zara realized, set down her wine glass with a sharp clink. Enough. Jae-won, I've been patient. I've allowed this display. But I need to know what you're thinking. This woman is not appropriate. Appropriate for what, grandmother? For you. For this family. For our legacy. She is not one of us. Zara started to stand. I should go. Sit down. Jae-won's voice was quiet but absolute. Zara sat. Grandmother, with all due respect, you've paraded 12 women in front of me this year. Politicians' daughters. Heiresses. Models. Every single one of them would have sold their soul for the life I could give them. Every single one failed my test. Your ridiculous test isn't ridiculous. It shows me who people are when they think no one's watching. When they think power is up for grabs. He looked at Zara. This woman was offered unlimited wealth on a silver platter. And she didn't blink. Not because she doesn't want money, she works harder than anyone in this room just to survive. But because she knows who she is. She knows what she's worth. The grandmother's eyes narrowed. Pretty words. But the world doesn't run on principles. It runs on power. On blood. On alliances. Then perhaps it's time to change what this family runs on. The silence was deafening. Zara could feel the weight of every stare, every held breath. Then the grandmother smiled. But it wasn't warm. It was calculating. Very well. You want to prove she's different? Then let her prove it. She snapped her fingers, and a man in a black suit stepped forward, placing a leather folder on the table. These are the contracts for the Chen partnership. $300 million. The signing is tomorrow. Take her with you. If she can survive one night in our world, really survive it, then we'll talk. Jae-won's jaw tightened. That meeting is dangerous. You know what the Chens are like. Exactly. If she's as strong as you claim, she'll handle it. If not. The grandmother shrugged elegantly. Better to know now than after you've embarrassed the family further. Zara's heart was pounding, but she spoke before Jae-won could. I'll do it. Everyone turned to look at her. What? The grandmother raised an eyebrow. I said I'll do it. Whatever this meeting is, whatever you need me to prove, I'll do it. Because I don't run from things that scare me. I never have. For the first time, Zara saw something like respect flicker in the old woman's eyes. We'll see about that. That night, Jae-won drove her home himself. The city lights blurred past the windows of his black Bentley as they sat in heavy silence. You don't have to do this, he finally said. The Chens, they're not like my family. They're genuinely dangerous. They'll test you in ways that have nothing to do with credit cards. Why did you bring me into this? The truth. He was quiet for a long moment. Because I'm tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of playing games with people who only see my money and my name. When I saw you standing there, refusing to scramble for something that wasn't yours. I thought, maybe, just maybe, there's still someone real left in this world. You don't know me. No. But I'd like to. Zara looked out the window. I've been invisible my whole life. Too black for some spaces. Too poor for others. Too proud to beg, too broke to rest. And now you're asking me to walk into a room full of people who could destroy me without a second thought. I'm asking you to walk in there and show them what I already see. That you're worth more than all of them combined. She turned to face him. And if I do this? If I survive your grandmother's test? What then? Then I'd like to take you to dinner. A real dinner. Just the two of us. No tests. No games. Just, getting to know each other. Despite everything, Zara felt the corner of her mouth twitch. That's a pretty normal request coming from a man they call the Korean butcher. He winced. You heard about that. I hear everything. It's how maids survive. That name, it's not about what you think. It's about what I did to a man who hurt someone I loved. What did you do? I made sure he could never hurt anyone again. His eyes met hers. I'm not a good man, Zara. But I'm not a monster. Not unless someone makes me one. Zara studied him, the sharp lines of his face, the weight behind his eyes, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel like he was afraid of what they could do. I believe you, she said softly. He looked at her then, and something passed between them. Something unspoken. Something electric. Before you find out what happens at the Chin meeting, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. You don't want to miss the ending, trust me. The Chin meeting was held in a private restaurant in Chinatown, the kind of place with no sign outside and armed guards at every door. Zara walked in beside Jae-won, wearing another dress he'd sent her, emerald green this time, with a high collar that made her feel like royalty. The Chin family was already seated. 5 men and 2 women, all watching her with predatory interest as she approached. So this is your new plaything, Kang. The patriarch, a heavy-set man with cold eyes, gestured for them to sit. Bold choice. I didn't know you had a taste for the exotic. Zara felt Jae-won stiffen beside her. But she placed a hand on his arm before he could speak. Actually, I'm the one who has a taste for the exotic. She smiled sweetly. I don't usually dine with men whose net worth is smaller than their ego, but I'm making an exception tonight. Silence. Then the patriarch burst out laughing. She has fire. I like that. He leaned forward, his amusement fading. But fire can be extinguished. Let's see how you handle the real heat. What followed was 3 hours of psychological warfare disguised as a business dinner. The Chens probed and prodded, looking for weaknesses. They made comments about Zara's background, her race, her place in society. They tried to rattle Jae-won by suggesting she was a distraction, a liability. Zara met every attack with calm precision. She discussed business strategies she'd learned from night classes. She countered their racism with wit instead of anger. She refused to break. And slowly, she watched the respect in the room shift. By the end of the night, the contracts were signed. The partnership was sealed. And the Chen patriarch stood to shake her hand. "You're not what I expected," he admitted. "Kang is either very foolish or very smart to bring you here. I'm beginning to think it's the latter." As they walked out into the cold night air, Jae-won finally exhaled. "You were incredible in there. I almost threw a wine glass at his head twice. But you didn't. Self-control is a survival skill when you grow up the way I did." He stopped walking and turned to face her. They were alone in the alley behind the restaurant, the distant sound of traffic the only reminder that the world still existed. "Zara. I know this started as a test. I know I pulled you into something complicated and dangerous. But what I feel right now, standing here with you, this isn't a game anymore." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't want you to go home tonight. Not because I'm afraid for your safety. Not because of what my grandmother might think. But because when I'm with you, I finally feel like I can breathe." Zara's heart raced. "Jae-won. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to feel the same way. Just, don't disappear. Please." She looked at this man, this powerful, feared, complicated man, and saw the loneliness he tried so hard to hide. She saw herself in him. Two people wearing armor they'd never asked to put on. "One dinner," she said. "The real one you promised." His face broke into a genuine smile. The first she'd ever seen from him. "Really? Don't make me regret it." He laughed, actually laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. But as they walked toward his car, Zara's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and felt her blood run cold. It was a text from an unknown number. "I know who you really are. The accident wasn't an accident. Meet me tomorrow, or I tell Jae-won everything." Zara's hand trembled as she shoved the phone back into her purse. Jae-won noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" She forced a smile. "Nothing. Just a reminder about my exam." But as he drove her home, Zara's mind was racing. The accident. They knew about the accident. The one that had killed her mother and put her in the hospital for 3 months. The one that the police had ruled as a simple car crash. But Zara had always known the truth. It wasn't an accident. And someone had finally come to collect. Jae-won walked her to her door, and for a moment, they stood there in the narrow hallway, the weight of everything unspoken hanging between them. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For seeing me. Thank you for being worth seeing." He leaned down, and for one breathless second, she thought he might kiss her. But instead, he pressed his lips gently to her forehead, a promise of things to come. "Good night, Zara." "Good night, Jae-won." She waited until his footsteps faded before closing the door. Then she slid down the wall, clutching her phone, and stared at the message that threatened to destroy everything she'd just built. Because the secret she'd been hiding wasn't small. It wasn't simple. It was the kind of secret that got people killed. And now, someone was coming for her.